beauty filter.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Brain Milk. I'm Dash McIntyre here with Adrian Polk. And today is Donald Trump's birthday. Anything you want to say to Donald Trump if he somehow listens to this podcast?
Happy 80th, I guess. You are now the oldest president we've ever had. The baby boomers are going to go to their, give up the White House with their cold, dead hands under the ground, I guess.
Literally clinging to all their positions of power that they can. What do you make of the UFC fight? You got any strong feelings on that, about that giant construction that Trump claims he wants to leave up and have it be like his Eiffel Tower, which seems kind of like an absurd idea, just this UFC wrestling ring or whatever.
I have not
Maybe
heard
he's
that.
talking about that like canopy thing on top, but it's a funny juxtaposition next to like the demolished East Wing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like a hole in the ground right now. You have any strong feelings on his bunker? Do you think he's kind of planning to like not leave or he'll hide out there? The elections go bad, or somebody try, like if JD Vance starts like leaking all the Epstein stuff or whatever, he goes trying to hide down there.
Be a convenient place to hide down there. But yeah, I would say that like having been to the White House, like it's kind of interesting how like close you can get to it, like the fence around the.
Have you ever been
lawn.
Inside or just outside? You mean?
I've never been inside, but
Okay,
like
yeah.
you,
I've been outside like probably 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And then like, obviously it's the most arguably the most important place on the planet in some respects.
Yeah.
So like I guess the bunker is probably something that was thought of a while ago, or probably many years ago, as something they need. So I guess it's good that like for continuity of government's sake, if the worst happens, I guess is a good thing. But it is kind of funny that people talk about it being a bunker for him to try to contest the next election and not leave.
Yeah, because I guess it was kind of constructed around like World War II, like the bunker, right? Like roughly that time period, I think. I'm sure there's been renovations and stuff like that, but Trump's definitely making it bigger. You think he put his name down like just on every hallway down there?
Yeah, well, I have heard because who was it? One of the guys from CBS or NBC or whatever, Stephanopoulos, wrote a book about the Situation Room, and he said when you go down there, one of the things that's surprising is how compact and tight that room is, but then all the other rooms down there. So, obviously the needs of the White House from the, I guess, World War II to today is considerably grown.
Yeah, right.
But it's kind of like Congress members, like a lot of the members of the House have offices in a different executive building. They don't actually have their offices in the actual Congress building itself, which is reserved for like the more senior people. And then I think all the senators have offices and stuff. But it was kind of interesting. DC and a lot of public buildings. And, I can vouch, I've seen a lot of public buildings. They're not that nice. The stereotype of like the rich, bureaucrats sitting, stealing money from the people or whatever, and these nice, lavish jobs and stuff is not true.
Yeah, and that's kind of true with a lot of stuff. Like military housing is famously really bad in a lot of places and really needs upkeep. And it's just the kind of thing that like money has to be specifically earmarked for that, essentially. So you have a lot of soldiers living in just like really old houses, especially in kind of like more insignificant bases or smaller bases and maybe less like urban areas, So yeah. That is an interesting thing. It almost makes you wonder if Trump, like he could have, he loves this architectural kick he's on and just like remaking everything, just kind of playing with like a play set in the White House while everything else, like he has no control over. This is like the one thing that he can actually put a stamp on, now that like he has no plan to do anything about inflation. The supply chains around the world are all like, he's got no control over that. And he's screwing it up with Iran. And now Iran has control over the strait and is really kind of like setting the pace of these negotiations, because they have the leverage and they don't need to make a deal if they don't want. Although Trump apparently claimed today that Iran like agreed to a deal, which who knows? I'm sure we'll find out like tomorrow that like it's all lies, But I know Iran said this is the deal, and then everyone started shitting on it like yesterday or something like that. There was this big list of things that was pretty controversial, and then Trump had to immediately be like, "That's not the deal. They're like bad faith negotiators." Like he started ranting about them. But I guess we can segue to Iran. But it seems like any deal now at this point, he's just going to have to give them a ton of money, right? They have control. They have leverage over the strait, and Trump is really kind of he's got his back against the wall because, like the supply chains and the economic catastrophes that are happening because of the strait being closed, and all the nitrogen, the helium, hydrogen, like all the, all these rare earths, and of course all the fossil fuel energy that has to go through that strait. So it is kind of interesting. Just he's got no control over anything, and maybe that's why he's going ham with like the pool. And
Yeah.
he's
It's the one thing
profiting a
is,
little bit. I'm sure he's getting
yeah.
kickback somehow by like letting the company that like worked on some other properties of his. I think some estimates say 5 times, 10 times the actual value is what they're
Well, there are no
being
big
paid.
contracts that like have
Yeah,
value plus or cost plus, and then you're like, oh wow, we accidentally
yeah.
spent $1 billion. Good thing you have
Oops.
to
Yeah, and
10% over no matter what.
right. And he did change the color because it was supposed to be that bright blue, but then he ended up switching colors. I guess it was pretty controversial, right? So now it's a darker color, and then it's like absorbing more heat. So now there's an algae problem.
That's funny.
Yeah. I had a joke. I don't remember if I posted it or not yet, but it was something like RFK Jr. volunteers to start swimming in that algae infested pool to like circulate it. I think I had a joke that he was like looking for like, he saw an eagle or something drop a mouse into the reflecting pool, and he never saw the body come out. So he's going to go look for it, do
Go scuba
experiments
diving
on
for
it.
it.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's also the kind of thing like people talk about, like the Bulwark does these like podcasts all the time, and the people in the government are stupider than you could possibly imagine. And it's like that's the kind of thing like if you had just gone down to like, I don't know, a do-it-yourself center, you're like, yeah, I'm trying to paint my pool, and it's like I'm gonna go with this color. You'd have some like gruff like 50-year-old dude just like, oh no, you don't want to do that, and then it's like
Yeah.
the government spending who knows how many millions of dollars on it. So
Right. It is funny. I'm not, the ballroom and everything like that. Where do you stand on that? Do you think the ballroom should be dismantled when he leaves office? Like if Democrats take over in 2028, should we waste the money tearing that down and then rebuilding the East Wing the way it was? Like if he really goes through it, like the next 3 years building this giant arch, is it worth it to like tear? I mean, maybe the arch because it's such a like an egotistical thing that is going to be like disrupting the view. And it's, I think, pretty close to like Arlington and like the view of going into DC. It's going to be kind of like an eyesore, I'm sure. And then
wasn't the arch
obviously,
supposed to like commemorate the military and stuff, or what is specifically does
yeah,
the arch
yeah,
commemorate?
the
Yeah.
military.
Well, the other thing I would say is that like even that's kind of stupid because like having having served, like the American military tradition is like you're a citizen and you go serve for a period of time and then you go back. We don't go back to being yeoman farmers anymore, but like you go
Yeah,
back to like civilian life and you're just a person. Like I don't think we need to necessarily commemorate like the military. I think we already have holidays to it. We've got millions of people who are veterans and stuff. Like I don't know, like an arch made by like a president who like obviously didn't serve and famously calls like military service members like suckers and losers. Like
yeah.
I think is like a little
And
off-putting,
he's
I
been
guess. But
incredibly accused of rape, sexual assault, sex
well,
trafficking,
yeah,
pedophilia.
yeah. But like, and then specifically like the ballroom, like, do I think they should cut it, like, destroy it? No, like, I don't think they should demolish it. But like, part of that's like, well, they already spent the money, so it's kind of like a sunk cost. So like, and people have said that like, it is true that they actually do need a space that they can like have security, and the Secret Service hasn't done a bang up job of late, so maybe you can contain like
Yeah,
gatherings in a more
right.
centralized place in the White House or next to it. But yeah, so I don't think they should demolish it. I know people in like the Bulwark talk about like that's if you don't say you're going to demolish it, I'm not voting for you. I'm not I'm not on that high
Yeah.
horse, I guess. What about you? What do you think? Do you think they should demolish it
I don't know. The
after it's
arch,
cost probably
I'm,
$1 billion or whatever?
yeah, I'm more strongly opposed to this giant arch that Trump wants to make all about himself. The ballroom, I just don't care, I guess, that much, especially once it gets made. Like how many, we're going to spend $1 billion to dismantle it and then another $1 billion or something to rebuild the East Wing. I don't know. That's I guess I'm not a single issue voter on that issue.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, it's like we talk about the buildings that really kind of a lot of the federal buildings that now are like decades old. You would think Trump would have a little more leeway of like, let's just build the congressional office building. Let's build a new building for the Department of Transportation or something like that. Like he could have done things that like actually probably would have helped the government a little bit. And a lot of those buildings are so old, and obviously the government's role and scope and like number of employees balloons over many decades, right? So I don't know. It just seems like that would have been an easier thing for Trump to have like many more buildings. But of course, he had to do it in the most egotistical, narcissistic manner that just needlessly turns everybody off and, does everything and gets the spending in the most abrasive way possible. So he didn't do himself any favors.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also wonder if, like, to some extent, does the like, I don't understand why the president can knock down part of the White House in general. Like, I
Well,
don't get
technically,
that.
I don't think it is legal, and it's going through the
Yeah.
courts, and that's why they keep like he keeps losing to the courts, so they're taking his name off the. That's so dumb. The Donald J. Trump and John F. Kennedy
Yeah.
Performing Arts Center, just so dumb. And then of course he writes his name like up on top in the middle, just so dumb.
That's like the architectural version of like the offices where they quote Wayne Gretzky and put, Michael Scott after like, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah,
right.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. That's like, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't get it. I mean, it does show too, like the lack of seriousness in some respects. Like there's a lot going on in the world. And like, I guess in the ballroom, you could say there's a necessary purpose for that, which, people go on the Sunday talk shows and try to talk up and justify, but like the art,
yeah.
the Arc de Triomphe de Trump or whatever is I don't understand why we need that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny too because, like, if you're a Republican, you would want Trump to maybe focus a little more on the policies that actually matter. Because right now he's like bogged down in Iran, and that probably takes like every single day of his time and attention, right? And all the boring meetings he has to sit through because
Maybe
yeah,
that he
maybe,
sleeps
yeah,
through.
yeah, that he's napping through, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I want to move on to another quote here that I have from JD Vance. Kind of went a little viral for him basically tweeting out, or he was on like one of the Sunday shows last week or something like that. But he was basically saying that like with this deal with Iran, that he was saying that if you look at all the major conflicts going back to World War II, they usually end with some kind of negotiation. And then, of course, everyone was dunking on them because one, like World War II ended with unconditional surrender.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
he
not a
brought up like,
negotiation.
yeah. He also brought up, I think, Appomattox Courthouse of the Civil War, and that was kind of again another unconditional surrender, where just the armies that we vanquished were just collapsed and fell apart, and their kind of tyrannical governments just literally had no choice but to just do whatever we said. So, but those were obviously giant negotiations, much different than this one, where Trump started a war out of nowhere, lost the leverage, and now has no control over the situation. So yeah, it is annoying too that the Bulwark guys were talking about this. Tim Miller was saying this, that basically it's like, how much should we gloat that Trump is getting like a terrible deal? But like, you also don't want to like give him a reason not to do the deal because the war is terrible. It's causing disastrous effects around the world, especially to other countries beyond us, more so than like Americans are feeling the effects. And so we really do want this over. But like, what would Fox News be doing if this was Joe Biden or Obama being president and doing a deal? Like I think the numbers are like 10 times the amount of money that Obama gave Iran, which was already their money because it was those arm payments that we never paid them for like 50 years ago. So Fox News like literally never shut up about it. And even to this day brings it up constantly. But now Trump is basically going to be forced to give Iran way more money and for nothing because, like he's not really getting anything out of this deal. It's basically going back to the status quo.
Well,
So
it's kind of a masterclass in like geopolitical confusion because like right off the bat, like, you know, they said it's going to be about democracy and freeing the Iranian people. And then their
yeah,
opportunity came and went, and they said, "Oh no, we're not doing that." And then like there's that whole thing where they tried to give a bunch of weapons to the Kurds and asked them to go invade Iran.
and the Kurds took the weapons and then said, "No thanks, we're not
Yeah.
going to do this."
Yeah. So then you didn't even have like the proxies. And then, you go into a war where you're like, air power alone will solve this, which is exactly what people like
Yeah,
air power theorists have wished for since like World War One. They're like, oh, if we can only just get a little better at bombing, we can win a war from the air, which will
yeah.
never happen. And then on top of that, they had like, what a confusing mess of like political outcomes, right? Like, obviously, a war doesn't end unless there's a political outcome, unless you do, unconditional surrender, which I suppose is still a political outcome or agreement. But like the fact that like they started with unconditional surrender on Iran, and then we're gonna like, take down the entire regime from top to toe, and they go, oops, we killed too many people. We don't even know who we're gonna
Yeah.
negotiate with. Then they killed people they were negotiating with, or people related to the people who they were negotiating with. And then on top of that, then they use tons of missile stockpiles, which is like our big deterrent value
Yeah.
is that we have like thousands of missiles and now we've used like a third or half of them. So that's great. So,
Yeah.
everyone talks, the entire, this is a funny thing, and I'm kind of rambling on here, But the funniest thing and the most galling and annoying thing to me is all of the geopolitical, like national security hawks who, sold their souls to the devil to go work for Trump have been, no, 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 we are serious people. This is about China. We need to, fuck Ukraine. We got to protect,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
war against our real interests in Taiwan. And they go, nope, just kidding. We're going to waste all of our missiles in Iran, not get anything we want,
Yeah.
close the strait, and then show the entire rest of the world that with a bunch of $20,000 drones, they can just waste millions and millions and millions of dollars, actually billions of dollars of U.S.
Yeah.
hardware. So, and they hit
Yeah.
a bunch of U.S. bases, which, you don't talk about deterrence. Like, it is not a good deterrent when your adversary hits your bases and then your service members are like working out of hotels
Yeah.
in a city, which is, not good. So, yeah,
Yeah.
all around geopolitical failure.
Yeah, it was basically like kind of bluffing and then getting called on it. Um, they also have the audacity to basically say like, oh, we can work with this regime because if we now have the son of the Ayatollah taking over, right? And
Mhm.
obviously the Revolutionary Guard that like still controls a lot of things, and they intentionally just kind of decentralized a lot of their command structure and their military apparatus, obviously anticipating something like this happening. But it is funny to think that we got a younger with now potentially like reset the clock on Iran's dictatorship because now this guy's way younger and that's like another 30 years ahead of him, I guess. I guess we haven't really seen him or anything and like how injured he got, but also it's funny because we killed his wife, his kids, his dad. So we like bombed his family and we have this new guy that now will live way longer and we just decimated his family, so it's kind of doing a vendetta.
Well, I'll
But
say
what are
one thing I found
yeah.
funny in all of that with like the leadership and knowing who they're even negotiating with is like, you would think that like Iran being like one of the major adversaries of the United States, or like maybe the fucking CIA, DIA, all those intelligence agencies would know who the fuck's running the country. And then you have Trump fucking talking on and on about we
Yeah.
killed everyone. We don't even know. He said one time, he's like, we're close to a deal, but then also in the same sentence he said, but also they have no idea who's even negotiating for them. And I'm like, okay, so is
Yeah.
I don't know what that
Just
means. Is
some
that
random guy that got on the phone one day
well, yeah,
making deals.
and it begs the question of like, does the CIA know who's running Iran right now? Did they not tell Trump? Does Trump not remember? And then he's just spouting on TV saying we have no idea who we're even negotiating with. We think we
Yeah.
killed them all, and if we haven't killed them, Israel's going to kill them. Short,
Yeah.
it makes no sense. What a cluster.
Yeah, and it was funny too because they had that plan to have the Shah's son come and start leading the entire country, and I'm like really curious. It'd be nice to get some reporting like from behind the scenes, like how far that idea went, like how much were they actually trying to bank on that with like maybe Israel's like third or fourth wave of bombings and our third or something. Like, all right, now we're gonna float this guy, and he's been living in America for like 20 years or something, right? But like, does anybody in Iran
40,
want?
50? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody in Iran know him? Appreciate that? Like, was that just a deal breaker right away? Like, I'm really curious to know like how far that idea went and how much of Trump's idea was kind of like hinging on that. Especially like all of his discussion about we're going to save the Iranian people. We're doing this for freedom.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too because if that was a plan and they were just going to impose this guy, like you have to remember too that like Iran, even though they're like controlled by a theocracy and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they still have like a democratic system where like they have actual like politics for like I think it's a president role, and I'm obviously not an Iran
Yeah,
expert, so like even though it's like a theocratic like dictatorial regime in some respects, like Iranian still has like some degree of democracy. So even if just imposing, the son of the Shah as a new dictator probably wouldn't even go over well with most of the Iranian
yeah,
people, I would imagine. So that's not good.
yeah.
And again,
And I
it's
wonder.
like, oh, well, I was going to say like, we go back and forth sometimes on this, but like, you like, it's such like a potential waste. If this was going to be the outcome anyway, like why didn't they just go all in on like we're going to topple the regime and like let the people take over and actually go with that? And then
Yeah,
it's like I wish like this is like a I guess like the liberal in me, like and like the idea that like people do matter and that like institutions matter and that they can change, and it's I'm not like a real politique guy or a realist as they say, and it's like wouldn't it be nice if we like actually tried to foment a democratic takeover of the country, and then we just whipped on that. So now that'll probably never happen again, and that opportunity is wasted because the Iranian regime shot 30,000 people in the streets or whatever, and like obviously they have more control now. The IRGC has even more control than they did before the war, and they've probably, for all we know, since like the supposed like theocratic leader may be disfigured, never like in public again. They may already be in control, right? Like I don't
Well,
even
they
think we know if the
definitely,
guy's son is alive. The previous leader's son.
yeah, who knows? The Revolutionary Guard is definitely more in control of things now. And then obviously, it again reset the clock on like the number of people that are like America is not worth negotiating with. They're the great
Great
Satan and
Satan.
everything like that. And like that's not going to get any better now that we just bombed all these people. And we probably bombed a lot of like, the Ayatollah himself was relatively moderate compared to some of the extremists. Again, with that democratic system, Iran, it definitely has a lot of radicals in their government with influence and power. And so, it's from my understanding, it's the Ayatollah that's actually been saying like, or keeping them from building a bomb already, like their nuclear program.
Well, the
Obviously
previous
they're,
fatwa, which now is no longer in effect since the guy who issued it was killed.
yeah,
So that's
right.
good. Yeah. The other thing, uh, like the other thing that's obviously this is going to turn away like everyone in power in Iran against America. Like there used to be like quote unquote hardliners and then more like moderates and stuff. But like I imagine like any moderate trying to advocate for some kind of engagement with like the West more broadly or the U.S. specifically, like is they're going to have zero say in any important meetings in Iran going forward. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It looks like they have an agreement that's going to America's going to stop the blockade. They're going to open the Strait of Hormuz. We'll see if they get a tax and money from ships going through, even if it's like $1 million per like shipping container or whatever. But it's like that's even more money we're just giving to the IRGC now. That'll give them
Right.
more control of the Iranian, society, economy, etc. So that's great.
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder, like, if in the long term something good could come out of this, and maybe it's just that, like, a lot of the world is basically managing Trump and figuring out how to do things around him because, like, a lot of countries have recognized that America no longer means anything it says, and the Trump administration really doesn't have strategies or doesn't even really have a process to create strategy, right? Like, if you look at everything we're doing in Iran, who's our allies? Who's helping us? Who's doing what? Where's the chain of command telling Britain and France and all these other countries to like, okay, your ships will go here. Here's all the policies. We're going to take this to the United Nations. Like, there's none of that. There's literally no strategy. Our only real ally is Israel. And even that, Trump's pissed off now because Netanyahu keeps going above and beyond the bombings. And they have the ceasefire that with
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Yeah. And obviously, they've had a ceasefire for weeks. It really hasn't been a ceasefire because Israel's still stealing 20% of their land, doing all of these bombings. And then Trump apparently called Netanyahu, and according to Axios or whatever, was saying that like Trump was saying he's done so much for Netanyahu. Netanyahu would be in prison without him, and that he's got no judgment. He's an idiot for doing these bombings. So like our only ally in this, that like there's a lot of air and space between the two administrations because Israel's not doing what Trump wants, right?
Yeah, and Israel is doing something. I mean, it's like this really gets lost in the sauce because it's Israel, and like a lot of people in power in America have like a undue like support of Israel. Like the fact that like Israel, like Lebanon is an independent country. It is a member of the United Nations, and Israel's just stealing land from them. Like we criticize Russia or trying to take over Ukraine. Like,
Yeah.
well, how is like I don't understand why there's not more global consternation and like any obviously what are you going to do? But like, come on, like we got to protect Taiwan from China. It's like okay, what about Lebanon? It's an independent sovereign
Yeah.
country and its borders are being just like walked over for some
Yeah, like 20%
supposed
of the land. Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of Taiwan, though, that China now is actually doing like soft blockades right now of Taiwan and trying to experiment with that. And I think kind of uh, doing the bluff that got called, right? Iran proved that like straits are real easy to just take control of if you have these drones that can bomb these really expensive U.S. ships. So like China maybe taking Taiwan now has seen, that we can just do Iran's playbook and just as long as we just have hundreds of drones ready to fly out and attack anything in the strait. I don't, same thing with Taiwan. I'm sure Taiwan can fight back in the same way. But if they start doing this blockade and just start taking control of that strait, it's a much bigger strait, obviously, but China also has way more ships, missiles, and drones, things like that. So, not great for American national security. Plus, Trump. Do you think Trump cares at all about Taiwan? Like, do you think Trump probably already sold out Taiwan in that summit he did in China?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. Like, part of me thinks that like there is a pragmatic like aspect of like China and Taiwan where like, do you really want, like, for example, a slogged out, like, naval Air Force like fight between the United States, like Indo-PACOM fleet and Air Force assets and Army missiles against China, and like, what is that going to do to Taiwan? Like that would be horrible, right? So I mean, like, for all the obviously Taiwan should be defended because it's not an independent country, right? It doesn't have its own sovereignty technically, but
don't you
like,
think we
is
have
it really
enough?
worth?
Yeah, don't you think we have enough financial interest in it, though, given that so many computer chips go there, so much advanced technology? They're such a big partner buying up a lot of our military gear, especially now that we're losing military partners in Europe
Well,
that are now building things homegrown.
I'll say that the nuts thing is like, what happens if we like do contest it, and then like what happens to the global economy the next day? It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I don't have strong opinions on it, but like, if China, if China's gonna do it, like it's probably gonna be pretty hard for America to like stop it. Like that's one of the things that Iran is showing, and another reason why
Well,
this is like
especially
a
now that we have like a 5-year buildup of all the missiles we just wasted
Well,
in
I mean, yeah,
Iran.
and it's like just think of like how many missiles are on a ship, right? Like, let's say you can count them up. You can go on Wikipedia and say, "Oh, look at this Chinese frigate or Liu Yang," right? And then look at a Arleigh Burke destroyer, and you can count up how many missiles they have, and go, how many 10,000 drones can we just fly at these ships, and like let's see how long it takes before they they run out of stuff, and like that's
Yeah.
a real thing that like the I don't know. It's, everyone talks about deterrence. In the old days, like, we need to deter our adversaries. We need a strong deterrence to protect America. And it's like, well, deterrence is really just in people's heads. So once you've destroyed the deterrent value of your
Like we just did in
military,
Iran.
yeah, I mean, you're like, oh yeah, we spend billions of dollars
Yeah.
on these exquisite high-end systems, and Iran just kind of fucked with us a little bit. So that's not good. And
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of good because, like, while it does make it seem like China would be more, advantaged in the Taiwan Strait. I mean, hopefully, it's giving China pause too. That if Taiwan is buying drones, like I hope they are, right, they could easily do the same kind of things to a Chinese invasion that Iran has done to essentially close the strait itself. Because like closing the strait goes both ways. Iran can close it. America can close it. The same thing. China could close the Taiwan Strait, try to invade. Taiwan could equally close the Taiwan Strait and propel them. So I guess we'll see what happens. It is a very
Yeah.
high risk situation. And I think going forward, like, people say like Xi Jinping thinks that like all other Chinese leaders are pussies and he's the only one who can do it. He's the only one with the guts to actually go take Taiwan back. So, I mean, it's like, right or
I don't know.
wrong. I
Do you
mean,
think
it's a
he's going to
scary
do?
future and outcome.
Do you think he's going to do the Putin route? Just have these like delusions of grandeur as he's getting older now, and he sees, he wants one more notch for his legacy. That he
We'll
might
see.
just bog down and kind of fuck China politically and economically and militarily.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. Like a lot of people talk up about like this is the decade window of opportunity where China is going to start facing its like demographic cliff. Which people like Peter Zahan talk a lot about demographics and talk about like how it's just like this done deal that all these countries are fucked. And like I don't really think that's true. Like people talk about like, oh, Germany's fucked. Like BMW won't have anyone to like man factories and build cars. And like I'm pretty sure in 10 years BMW will still be building cars, right? Like it's like even if Germany's population declines by 40%, won't they still find some people to fucking make some cars? But the same thing goes for China. Like, okay, yeah, they've got a disproportionately older population. and they're still a massive country with the second GDP, biggest GDP, and they have higher like what is it like PPP or whatever that is, like per person or whatever, which is actually higher than America. So their spending power parity is technically higher than ours. So like just in 10 years, if they have like 150 million people who are like in retirement, more than a normal country, that's not going to keep China from being able to do what they want geopolitically, I would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it becomes a bigger thing once you have more people needing money from the government and like old age support, healthcare, things like that, but without enough young people to like kind of replace the economy. And I guess you get to the point where a lot of these cities that have been built, like already China built up all these like ghost cities where no one lives, and they did a lot of fuzzy math and keeping their like spending and their GDP up in kind of like shifty ways. But you get to the point where there's just all these cities, you have way too many houses, and then things kind of cascade from there where house prices go down to zero, and all these Chinese that have put their life savings into buying houses and apartments in big cities and things like that. But already, I mean, I
But that
heard
won't keep China from invading Taiwan in like 8 years or 9 years. And like, I guess the other thing I'll say to that point is that, and it's something I heard. I read this thing that apparently there was like some hot mic or someone was talking about Xi Jinping talking to Putin during one of their meetings about how Chinese researchers are trying to figure out how to make people live forever or to be 150 or something. So it's like,
yeah,
oh, great. So Putin and Xi Jinping can run their countries for up until the 2060s as like 150-year-old men or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if it's like if something like that, if they think that's true, it could give more time to waiting more. Like obviously they probably want to have Taiwan sooner rather than later. And I would imagine that, like, if nothing else, they'd want it by 2049, the 100-year like celebration of the takeover of China. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm skeptical that like, well, I guess if Trump already sold them out and they're doing this quasi fake practice test run of a quarantine or whatever around Taiwan, like, something could happen really quick. Obviously, there's another big thing like geopolitically that like, Trump just invading a new country every couple of months kind of like does away with like the American led world order where you don't do that. So
yeah,
that's not good. So like, we're trying to say, oh, it's a fait accompli against Venezuela. We're just going to book their leader out and fuck you. You're in jail now. And it's like, oh yeah, China could do that to Taiwan. It's like, oh, we're going to go fuck around in Iran just because we can. And then it's like, oh, China could do that in Taiwan. And now,
right.
what's going to happen in the next couple months probably is we're going to do the same thing to Cuba, right? Do you have any doubt in your mind that Marco Rubio and Trump aren't eyeing Cuba as their next little geopolitical adventure? And then it's like, oh, so America gets 3 geopolitical adventures. Doesn't China get 1 in Taiwan? And I guess we'll
Yeah,
see what happens.
right. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I was hearing a big talking. I read a piece recently talking about how because Trump has just pulled America out of so many international organizations, right? Like he doesn't really care about using the United Nations. He pulled out of the WTO, the World Health Organization, things like that. But then China is basically stepping into those, and it was interesting. It was kind of commenting how China basically is taking over a lot of those international kind of like treaties, international organizations, things like that. But this is something that America built, funded forever, right, and created this. So now America, through Trump, is basically having America just totally hands off the world stage. And now China's taking over all those, doesn't have to do any of the heavy lifting to put those things in order, and is now basically
And build them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is just inheriting the thing that gave America so much soft power around the world for decades and decades. And now Trump's basically just handing it off to China free of charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a geopolitical misstep. I like it's what you would call a strategic mistake, right? A
Yeah.
strategic mistake is something that once you make this mistake, you're just going down a road that's probably going like later historians point to that era and go, "Yep, that's fucking what did it." And like the idea that like, you know, human history has just been countries and empires, tribes going to war against each other every fucking summer because they felt like it to take people, money, and land just because they wanted to every goddamn year, every single summer. And it's like,
Hmm.
for the first time after World War II, America takes like all of the defeated people and goes, you know what? We're done fucking with you. We're going to make you our ally. And then, you have all of Western Europe become America's ally. And then we win the Cold War. And what do? We take every like Eastern European country that was part of the bloc of our enemy and go, okay, now we are making you our ally. So like America's like, allies and partners that we've accumulated since World War II is like the most advantageous advantage any country or, what have you, like in human history. And now Trump is slowly whittling that away and pissing it away for no obvious strategic benefit. Like, I don't, people used to talk about like when Biden was president, it's like, America's GDP next to China. Obviously, we have a bigger GDP and we're actually growing faster now than them. But then also, if you count all the GDPs of Italy, Spain, the UK, France, Germany, South Korea, Japan, I mean, like we are like 65, 70% of global GDP, our allies and our closest friends who, even though like they don't do everything we tell them to do just because we fucking tell them to do it, but like directionally, they're on board with everything with
Yeah,
us.
right.
And it's like, this is such a strategic misstep that like I think we're going to look back and be like, wow, why did America do that? How could going back to 2024 with like, in some respects, and I wonder what you think, but like, in 2024, as we were rallying the world to basically support and fund Ukraine against Russia, and then on top of that, America came out of COVID better than almost any other country. We had like such a preponderance of like close friendships and allies with countries all over the world. And then, we elected Trump, and then, geopolitically, a lot has started going downhill since then. So like, what do you think? Do you think like 2024 might have been like a pinnacle of American power and like a historical perspective looking back at the way things are going?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it depends how big of a pendulum swing back 2028 might be, right?
Well, think
Because
of like the lost deterrence value, like the fact that like, we have shown that like a bunch of drones can close a tiny strait that we want open. Like we couldn't keep it open. Iran had a tremendous amount of power. And again, deterrence is like psychological, right? Like in 2024, did anyone think, especially after like, our previous engagements with Iran, did anyone think that America wouldn't be able to keep the strait open if we wanted to?
right.
I mean, probably not, right? Like, people would say, "Oh, yeah, we've war gamed this, and it's going to be a difficult thing." But like, I would never bet against the U.S. military. And now, like, why wouldn't you bet against the U.S. military to be able to close or to not be able to keep a strait open against like Russia or like Iran, like we've seen, or China?
Yeah. Plus, it's about pivoting from what we've learned, because now we've learned that, like, actually, the future warfare is all about just building 1,000 drones a day that you can launch, right? And so now America is kind of like way behind. Like, we have a bunch of drones, but they're really big and expensive, and it's all about that cost equilibrium, right? Like,
Cost
if
curve. Everyone
yeah,
talks about the
it's
cost curve. Yeah.
if all these people have like lawnmower drones that can just like we have to send like a $250,000 missile to destroy for like a $10,000 lawnmower drone,
I
right?
think you mean a 2.5 or 3 million missile,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
or $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah, basically, it's like I was saying earlier, where we were bluffing, and then they called the bluff, and now a lot of those things that people just assumed that like let's never try to get into a war with America or do anything where they can bomb us from the skies because it'll be overwhelming and it'll destroy us. Right? Iran proves that you can plan around that, and you can be successful if you advance in the drone area faster than we have.
Yeah, I mean, part of me hopes that, like, because you saw a lot of countries, like especially NATO countries, like actively spending like you know gargantuan percentages of their military budgets to get something like 40 F-35s, or some
Yeah.
outdated American shit. And like, I think on the one hand, I think it's probably a good thing going forward that some of the ubiquitous like military capabilities that are being used to stop like bigger powers, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's Iran, is actually pretty cheap. So like I hope that a good thing that could come from this is like just the deterrent value of like so many potential interstate conflicts. Like you look at like Azerbaijan and their flare up with what was it, Armenia or whatever. And it's just like even like smaller countries having conflicts or border wars, like knowing that like, oh yeah, like we're not that rich, but we have like 45,000, drones that can just drop grenades on people from, 10 miles into the front. I hope it's a deterrent value that keeps people from fighting because, the days of spending like all of your military budgets for like 3 American tanks and 2 jets and 4 helicopters, and pretending like that's going to help
Yeah.
NATO, stop Russia are over. And I think that like the cost curve for like just prevention and deterrence is probably going down.
Yeah, but going to your point about can you bounce back from this? Like, one thing that is good is Trump has so alienated Europe that they really are going ham now and building their own domestic military like apparatuses and things like that. So that's a good thing. Like, if you get to the point in a post-Trump world, like, I don't know, do you think Marco Rubio, if he became president or was trying to run for president in 2028, do you think he would do the same fuck everybody approach? Do you think he
Probably
would be as
not.
susceptible to bribes? You know, like, so he would actually have some coherent foreign policy that he would of a Rubio administration with his name on it that he would maybe want to re-ally with all these again, like the other like 20% of the world GDP that adds to our like 30% or whatever that gets you to that 60 to 70%, like you said. So like Trump's first term, like Biden kind of undid a lot of the damage, in 2 to 4 years, right? I think
Well,
the
Trump was
world,
also contained in a lot of ways. Like people remark about that a lot, but it's like it's
yeah,
literally true. Like
but I would say he's a little contained in this one because he's now so much older and more senile and demented, and he's got way less energy, and he spends less of the day awake. Like that's kind of a containment, right? Just he can
well, no,
only
I
do
mean
so
like
much because he
yeah,
doesn't know anything. He doesn't read. He doesn't care at all about legislation. He doesn't even really appear to care that Democrats are increasingly poised to take back both chambers of
yeah,
Congress right now. You think he almost like prefer it the way he's doing like literally nothing, and maybe he does prefer it because like then he can blame all his problems on the Democratic House and Senate not like going along with whatever he wants. That'll be a good foil for him. Right now, Republicans have full control, so
yeah.
they have fewer people to blame their fuck ups on.
Well, there's a big difference, I think, with the first term, which is just the level of competence of the average person walking around the White House.
Right.
I remember after January 6th, right? Like in the first term, like there were enough serious people, like the White House lawyers and stuff, who told people like John Eastman, like if the next fucking words out of your mouth aren't peaceful transition of power, I'm gonna fucking punch you or whatever, and, like beat the
Yeah.
shit out of you. Yeah.
Uh
And it's
huh.
like I don't think there are people like that who are in the the administration this time around. So I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. That goes back to the bunker discussion earlier. Like, if I don't know, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Let's go a little more into domestic politics now. What do you think of Graham Plattner winning the Maine primary? He won with about 72% of the vote that I checked last. Um, and then do you think does his controversies bother you at all? Is it still just obviously more imperative that Susan Collins win or loses because she's terrible and only does these like moderate votes when it doesn't matter and Republicans already have the votes and like anything that
Yeah.
actually matters, she just votes party line?
Yeah. I understand that, like, well, I should say, like, yeah, she's, she's like the milk toast. She's like the best of a bad situation Republican. And like, do I think Graham Plattner should be running? No. Like, do I think he should probably quit and say, yeah, I've kind of embarrassed myself in my state? And then like, couldn't we just find like I think the Democratic Party of Maine should just go like 3 miles off the coast and pluck up the first lobster fisherman they find and say, you're our
Yeah.
fucking candidate now, and just like, go roll with that. Like,
Yeah.
that being said, like, people say, I haven't really heard his speeches. Have you, like Graham Plattner? Like, people say
Well, I
he's like
mean,
a gifted politician, but,
yeah, I mean, he's pretty good, like doing the stump speech and everything. He's pretty liberal. He wants universal healthcare coverage. He's pretty good about talking about like the kind of the oligarchy that we are fighting against, and kind of having a economic populism that like clearly is popular. I mean, that was like 72%. That's almost 3/4 of Maine voters, or at least
he was running
Democratic
against
primary
someone who
voters.
already quit. So like, that's not that
Yeah.
impressive to me. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, part of me thinks like, in a moral sense, in an ethical sense, he should probably drop out. But like, I think the most important thing is
Well, it would
probably,
suck if he loses, and then Republicans keep a, they get to a tie or something that they would have, like Democrats would have won the Senate had it not been for Maine or something.
yeah, and that's a risk. Like, that's why I think they should just go pluck another lobster fisherman at random and just hope for the best and see if like the coattails of the Democrats right now can
Yeah.
propel.
Oh, no, not another Nazi tactic.
Yeah,
All the lobster
yeah.
farmers are
Well,
Nazi
that's the
business.
other argument that, like, the people who run for office actually do reflect the American people, and therefore we should just go with it. Like, obviously, like, what was it? They were saying like, oh, is Graham Plattner the worst fucking person in history to run in American politics? And it's like, well, are you including the president in that list? So,
Well, you know what? It pisses me off because like so much of the media coverage right now is on Plattner, and obviously the media always does this to prove they don't have a liberal bias. They go so hard on Democrats when really in Texas, Ken Paxton is like 10 times worse, right? Ken Paxton's like
he was
a
about to be
piece of
impeached by his own
garbage.
party.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
one vote away from
Um,
being impeached. So they go, well, I guess he should be senator then.
Yeah, he also committed like mortgage fraud. He did abuse of powers where he was like spending money
Oh,
frivolously
mortgage
for
fraud.
people
Isn't
he
that
was
the thing
connected
that
to.
James Comey allegedly should be
Yeah,
tried and put in
right.
jail for? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, cheated on his wife, just like crazy lunatic. But the media gives Republicans a pass where it's almost like just expected that they're kind of pieces of trash, right? Where they're going to not, they're going to have total hypocrisy on their alleged Christian values, right?
Well, so
A
it's like
big,
it's kid gloves, right? Like you treat like the
yeah.
media treats Democrats like serious adults, which they typically generally are, and then they treat like Republicans, which with such like an infantile gaze, and it's like the worst thing happens, and it's like oh, like are you concerned by this to like the other Republican senators, and then like that's another thing is like well. That's a whole another discussion on like whether or not like members of Congress should like actually try to instill any type of ethical morality in any politics, but I guess Congress is no better. So, like, the fact that like this amazes me. Like, people talk about like should Democrats like pass a bill if they get control of the House, like banning members of Congress from trading individual stocks? And it's like, why the fuck not? Why wouldn't you do that? And the fact that
Yeah.
Democrats are like, well, we're American citizens too. We should get to participate in the free market. And it's like with your insider
Yeah,
information, like,
free market.
yeah, yeah, it's such
Yeah, insider
bullshit. Yeah.
trading. Yeah. Do you think James Tallarico in Texas has a chance? Do you think this is the year Texas turns a little blue?
Texas is like typically like, I mean, yeah, Texas is one of those states that Democrats usually spend way too much money on. But like, I hope like, James Salarico seems like a pretty good candidate. He sounds good when I hear him talk. And then, as you just mentioned, the Republican candidate's one of the worst people to walk this country.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll be effective that they're calling him like gay and a trans man and he's a beta
Vegan.
loser?
Yeah.
Some Republican, I think some Christian was say. I just saw briefly the quote. I forget who said it, but it was like, "I am positive James Tallarico's going to hell." It's like okay, it's like the one time Republicans see a candidate that like literally is doing the things Jesus talked about, like in the Beatitudes and everything like that, like actually living a life of Christian values. They hate it and call it gay.
Yeah.
So just always annoying. What do you make of Ivanka and Jared Kushner's Albanian resort? You know what? I want to start off by saying they were saying it has 10,000 rooms and villas, and it's like in Albania, in a island that will probably have seasonal traffic, right? Like it's going to be a very seasonal summer resort. To have 10,000 rooms, like how many of those have to be filled for that to be economical, right?
I don't
So
know.
like it makes you think, is the entire point of it just money laundering, right? 10,000 rooms. They're going to like, June 2nd, June 9th, July 15th, August 10th, 10,000 rooms are filled. Like how many staffers are they going to have, right? And it's on this protected island, and they're obviously bullshitting about how we're going to protect the wildlife. Like 10,000 rooms. Like imagine all the garbage that that's going to create. Like what happens with all the like the energy usage and everything like that? Like what happens when trash just gets everywhere? Like they have a lagoon right next to it that I guess is protected, and it's got this like wildlife that I guess is protected too with some birds and things like that. So like, is any of that real? Is it trademark Trump hubris, like Trump family, like Trump brand, really hubris of just building things way too big where it's impossible to be profitable and they'll go bankrupt or something in like 6 months or a year, right? Or is it just all money laundering? Or it's got those bunkers underground. Apparently, it's like this old military installation. Is that to traffic young girls and boys and things like that? You just have the built-in
Are you just asking
underground cages
questions?
for them ready? What?
Are you just asking questions?
Yeah, I'm like, you got any
Yeah.
feedback to that? I mean, like to me, it just seems like
No, I
straight
mean, it's
up money
obviously,
laundering.
yeah, it's probably going to be some combination of money laundering or pay to play,
Oh,
and like,
what a surprise! Everybody in those villas paid cash. We don't have credit card records, but
yeah,
like millions and millions of dollars of profit a month.
that's like that just like wants me to reiterate the thing that I like. It's so funny, like when Trump was talking about like and his kids about like how we sell all this high end luxury real estate to Russian tycoons, and it's like, a quick reminder to everybody that like there is one market and one market only for overpriced real estate, and it's money laundering. Like
Yeah,
that is, as a fact, like that is the entire point of
yeah,
overpriced real estate. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's pay to play, and it's kind of fucked up that well, like you said, who's going to go there? Like, I don't imagine there's going to be a big international desire to be like, oh, honey, let's take the kids to Ivanka Trump and, resort in Albania. Like,
Yeah.
nothing against Albania, but like, I don't know. Yeah. And I do not have strong opinions on it other than
Well,
like,
and it's exploitation because it was protected land. Like Albania, like has beautiful coastline there. It's like the last bit of coastline in the Ionian Sea that Albania has not been the most developed country for the last several decades. So, like, they're basically, they apparently on a yacht, on the Rothschilds' yacht, by the way, like their friend whose yacht they're on was the Rothschilds. And then a reminder: the like Epstein was apparently a Rothschilds banker and was like an investment person for their money. So that was part of how Epstein got his whole operation up and going, was with Rothschild's money. So, and I love like how tone deaf that video was. Like Ivanka Trump did that like extreme softball interview where the guy was just like obviously just happy to like get her on the podcast, like ask no real questions or whatever. And she tells the whole story about how like they're on a yacht, they go for a swim, they see the island, and that's essentially how they found it. And then she claims they like walked barefoot up to the top, and everyone's like it's infested with snakes, and like it's like I guess it's a big enough island for
it's infested
10,000.
with snakes.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know. I don't know. They should. I have this joke. I haven't posted it yet because it's like maybe borderline incitement, but it was like the idea that Albanians should just start throwing tarantulas, poisonous spiders,
Yeah.
venomous snakes just over the gate or whatever, the fencing for the project. Start like just throwing dozens or hundreds of I don't know, rattlesnakes or something. But I forgot where I started this, but yeah, I don't know. That's just crazy. But oh yeah, the video and like how vacuous she sounded, like just so tone deaf, like no media training whatsoever. And then like nobody really knew about this resort, but then that video went viral, and now everyone's protesting, right? Like Albania, they like were like firebombing, throwing like burning bottles at the I think what was it, the former dictator's house or something with the prime minister. I don't know whose house exactly it was, but they've been protesting for like 2 weeks now. And I was trying to get evict the Trumps trending, and it did a little bit, but I was posting a lot like when that video first came out and everyone first started protesting. But man, just talk about like nepo babies, and then obviously it's like are they really that plainly rebuilding Epstein's island and making the second iteration of the sex trafficking ring, right? Like,
Good
and I
question.
had a joke. It's like they broke the first rule of billionaire pedophile sex trafficking is like don't gloat about how genius and brilliant and visionary you were for finding this protected land, doing a deal with the corrupt government officials to get it developable. If that's the word. And yeah, just insane. What an insane story all around.
Yeah. And it goes into like just how much money like the rich are making right now. And now Elon Musk is a trillionaire. So that's at least on paper, right? That's like
Yeah.
the goofiness of like our capitalist system where, you have these. Well, the other thing is like, it's obviously like, people just throw money at the companies Elon Musk is involved with, which is kind of interesting because like,
Total
if
meme
you
stock kind of
if
thing.
you took Elon Musk out of Tesla, like let's say Tesla just fired him from the board or CEO or whatever, and it's like, what would their valuation be? Wouldn't it probably drop by like 70, 80% or something? And then it kind of begs the question of like, well, if all these like rich people are just going to throw money at his companies, like, what's going to stop him from just making another company, another three companies and just having IPOs and selling stock? And, he could be worth $2 trillion in a couple of years if he tries, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, it is preposterous, right? And a lot of people have commented on, they're obviously right about how, like, we have the world's first trillionaire, and he has absolutely no evident desire to give any of that money to anyone to help anyone at all. It's like,
Yeah. In
at
fact,
least the Robert.
he actually spent money to get into the government to make the government spend less money for poor people around the world.
Yeah, and at least the robber barons in the 1890s, like, actually thought about giving back and built a bunch of libraries and gave money to people and set up foundations and stuff that were true nonprofits that
Yeah,
actually tried
but
to
it's not
better
real
society.
money. Like the money is only in there as like stock capital gains, right? Like it's if he starts selling all that stock, the value goes down. And also, he's been doing a lot of stuff where like SpaceX bought Tesla and then like that other AI company that he spun off. So, some people have been speculating forever that he's just building like a giant house of cards to hide how much like debt he has. There's obviously all the debt from Twitter that I don't think he's paid. He spent all this money on AI with Grok to try to compete against OpenAI and Anthropic and all of that. So I don't know. People were speculating that like the bubble might be popping already because apparently he wanted to do something and get loans based off of like the upcoming valuations that just happened, and then bankers told him no. But it also like especially with this thing, because they waived all those rules to get him into the IPO faster or whatever, right? Because like SpaceX isn't really profitable. It's spending like
Oh,
$200 billion,
yeah, being
but
listed
like not
wouldn't
making
be,
that much profit. Yeah. So
yeah.
like right off the bat, he's basically stealing money, and now they changed the rules so that everyone's investment funds and everything, like if you're in the top 500 or whatever companies, you have to invest in SpaceX
I think
now
it's the
that it's one
Nasdaq.
of the
I think the
biggest
S&P
companies. Yeah.
500 pushed back on changing the rules to let him in, because normally you have to have four profitable quarters before they'll let you be listed. Because
Right.
obviously the S&P 500
And
like
SpaceX
index
has had
doesn't
how many
want.
profitable quarters? Zero.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like shameful because that's like one of the, the rich people are just like ruining institutions left and right. Like the S&P
Yeah.
500 is an index that everyone's pensions and investment 401ks are typically invested in. So if you're to like, they shouldn't be in the business of doing something that risks people's money, because if the S&P
Right.
500 is going to fucking YOLO this economy, like everyone's going to, everyone who's not like a millionaire is going to be worse off. So like the fact that like if they were to change the rules, like I think the Nasdaq's going to do, or maybe the Dow Jones Industrial Average, but yeah, it is kind of messed up. You're going to change the rules just to siphon more money into this like giant cesspool of an unproven, business case. Like, people talk about like, oh, the fucking satellites, the
Plus,
satellites. And it's like,
yeah, right.
what's going to happen? Like, I guess like they say, oh, we're going to have 2 billion people using internet. And I've heard people say that like the internet, like satellites actually, they're going to need like 100,000, because if you actually have too many people using the bandwidth of the satellites in a tiny geographical space, like it actually doesn't work and it's super slow and latency goes up. So you'd actually be better off paying like, your Cox internet, your Comcast, like $40-$50 a
Right.
year, a month, rather than like just $150. The other thing, they're like, oh, we're going to get 1 billion people in the developing world to pay this. And it's like, you're going to get 1 billion people to pay 150, $250 a year, $300 a year, when their like actual like annual income's only like 10 grand. So you're like, you're gonna charge them 10% of their annual income for internet. Like that's probably not going to happen. So that to me, it begs the question. I guess we'll see what happens in the next coming days. The market's open tomorrow morning. We'll see if the 20-30% rise from Friday continues. But I don't think there's like a good business case other than like the Elon Musk name, which isn't, that's a meme business case, not an actual business case. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, and it pisses me off that it is such a meme thing, because especially with this thing with the screwing up with the IPO rules and everything like that, like they're literally stealing money for an unprofitable company, right? That is based on a meme stock. So essentially everyone that is investing in it, that then the value blows up because now the entire, like everyone's retirement fund has to reshuffle all of their allotments of money and where they invest to invest now in this most profitable company or most, I guess, valued company, even though it's not profitable. SpaceX itself is dependent on government grants. And I don't know, maybe when Democrats take over, they're not going to be, they're going to take another look at those contracts and maybe not give SpaceX anymore. So it
Well,
is
it's ruining the
very
economy.
frustrating.
it's actually ruining the economy for everyone. I wrote a little article about this, but like the idea that like, you know, in any market, in any transaction, you have two people on opposing sides, right? Like, so if you're to buy a stock, you're typically buying it because you think it's going to go up. People sell it because they think it's going to go down. Then you bring in the pretty massive like derivatives market, derivatives being like, you know, bets basically on the up and down movements, which allows you to
Right.
leverage more. So, and it's a shit ton of money embedded in there. So like the idea that like all these people, members of Congress, Trump's family, the people will, you know, roaming the White House just hear all this shit and start betting against it. Like it really throws the entire, you know, economy. I shouldn't say economy, the entire markets for like stocks and stuff and derivatives completely out of whack. Because if you actually know what's going to happen, you basically get like, you know, like free money because you can essentially bet on it and you don't have to like worry about like the risk and chance and the costs of being wrong occasionally. So and a lot of that is basically stealing money from other people in the market. Because if you've got a lot of people betting on like, you know, buying and selling shares of stock based on like, you know, let's say the to use an example, like the price of Coke going up 10% or down 10%, but like, you know, that the federal government's going to give Coke like $4 billion in a new, especially with these like little stocks with like really small like public floats and like really small valuations, like they can pop like that. And if you just know what's going to happen, you're essentially stealing money from everyone else investing in that stock or that, you know, derivative or whatever. So that's unfair. And then it makes the whole market worse off because all that money gets sucked out. And then, you know, rich people make like 10, 20, 30% a week, whereas like your 401k might go up 1% or go down 2%, you know? But meanwhile,
Right.
people are just siphoning money out of it. Anyway, long explanation, but
Yeah.
they're ruining the market and the stock market for literally everyone else in this country.
Yeah. Kind of segueing to Trump's fraud. I have this kind of working theory that like I feel like Trump is flailing so much right now that like almost the best thing to happen to him would be for him to stroke out right now, right? If he stroked out and JD Vance took over and then all the mega people, and I'm not saying I want this because I would love to see Trump in prison and stuff and be penniless eventually, you know, I'm sure we're not lucky enough to be able to see that. I'm sure JD Vance would pardon him.
You don't think, I think
Like,
any
there's no way
Republican,
Trump is leaving office without some implicit agreement or, you know, payoff and a, you know, a pardon, but, or he'll pardon
100%.
himself and just have
Yeah.
that go. He'll do both.
Well, they're
But
going to
anyway,
pardon everybody who stepped 200 feet from the, the Oval Office or whatever.
yeah. Because like everything they're doing now is flailing. They're not, like Trump's quote. I love the inflation. He doesn't. A couple of weeks or months ago, he said that he didn't care about like the living standards of Americans and prices going up and things like that. So Trump literally has no agenda right now. Congress isn't passing any legislation. Mike Johnson has no initiative whatsoever to do anything, right? He keeps actually leaving early anytime there's an embarrassing vote that's about to happen, right? They left early so that Republicans wouldn't vote with Democrats about with like the war authorization, I believe. They left early because of the Epstein stuff. So this is a complete do-nothing Congress. So Trump's getting no legislation passed. The Iran war has just totally suckered out like 6 months of his presidency, right? Because obviously they're planning this forever. Shit hit the fan, and now all of these unintended consequences.
They're
So like
definitely behind
nothing. What?
the timetable for Cuba. That's for sure. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't mean to interrupt
Yeah.
you for that.
No, no. But like, and then on top of that, like the courts are just throwing out everything he's trying to do. Like it's obviously unconstitutional for him to be put on the money. They just voted against him to put like to reinstate all the stuff they took down at like the national parks and things like that. He had to take his name off the Kennedy Center. Like he's really flailing. And then now he's like so demented. He's so obviously demented. He can't stay awake. While the TVs are doing like live video
Does that
recording,
mean
right?
he's
He's just
demented or
sleeping.
just doesn't give two shits about actual policy?
No, all of the above. First off, he's probably falling asleep because of like the insane cocktail of medications he's probably taking because of the blood pressure. His
Uh-huh.
hands are purple. He's obviously doing something like through his hand veins, right? He's getting some kind of medicine. Some
Yeah, I
people have
forgot about that.
speculated, some doctors have speculated that like there's some like anti-dementia medicine or something like that that you have to do through your hand, and that's why it's turning purple, but you got to do that a lot. And then it also explains the MRIs he keeps constantly doing because there's risks of like blood clots in the brain or like a
Oh, I
stroke or
forgot.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Because like
forgot.
they said the other day, like everything is great with his health, but he saw 22 doctors, and like you know, a lot of people are making the point. When was the last time you saw 22 doctors in a
Yeah.
day, right?
For a
Like, what's
physical.
going on? Yeah, yeah. And it's not the, like he's done many physicals. He keeps going to like Walter Reed, like ostensibly like anything that's like not major, they can do at the White House, right? There's doctors there on site and things like that. So yeah, being real suspicious about his, but like, he's falling asleep. He can't stay awake. He doesn't have energy anymore. Um, like, I don't know. What do you make of that? If would the best thing possible for Trump is if he had a heart attack or a stroke and died, and then all of his supporters could say it was almost all the things were going to come true. Everything he said, he just ran out of time, and then JD Vance killed it, or the Democrats took over and stopped all the America being great again. Do you think he'll actually live the whole 4 years? Do you think there's any comeback from this, or do you think like if he survives the entire term, like his legacy will just be like a smoldering dumpster fire ruin?
Well, I mean, I guess like my initial immediate reaction is like, that 8% of dipshits who, after 8 years of a president being in office, still have no opinion of the president's job. Like,
Yeah.
maybe they will be like, oh, that sucks. Trump died. But like, does it really matter? Like, I already think that like Republicans probably like, do you think any Republicans in like 15 years would talk about how like dumb, some of Trump's policies were? Or are they going to say he was the best president of our lifetime? Unless they're doing it like, oh, JD Vance is the best president of our lifetime. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. Well, like, does it
That would
really
be
matter?
interesting to hear, yeah, because they've said it about Trump so much. How easy will they give the next leader? But I think it does matter for 2028. Like, obviously, it's a huge thing. Like, do you campaign on you are continuing MAGA, that you are the real? Hold on, I'm just turning up my brightness here. Like, you are like obviously JD Vance and Marco Rubio will have some like aspect of saying like we are continuing MAGA or the Trump movement 2.0 kind of thing. Or like, if he lives the rest of the term and everything's a smoldering ruin, you might actually get some like back to old school conservative Republicans that totally want to turn the page and forget and undo everything Trump was doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they'll probably just not talk about it. I think like people, Republicans who think negative things about Trump will probably not talk and or say anything about it. And I think a lot of people, I think the good thing about from in one perspective, the good thing about the MAGA movement is it's like so like directionless. There's no like anchor. There's nothing
Because
rooting
it's
it
so
in anything.
demagogic
Yeah,
about
it's
one
just
guy.
So like
It's like a
MAGA will be.
personality cult.
Yeah, I think MAGA will morph into everything and anything anyone wants it to be, So in that respects, like if Trump were to, die, like that would be the best thing for the Republicans because they can all individually say, I am the true, standard bearer of Trump. And then, Trump can't be there to like tweet shit. I don't, what's the term, shit tweet them or whatever. So yeah, I
Hmm.
guess we'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I think any president dying in office is probably does something, as long as it's not in the first 3 months because you got pneumonia from being outside in the cold during your inauguration.
Wow,
Like,
shout out to
yeah,
Harrison.
deep cut. But yeah, so like, yeah, it would probably help his legacy. Like, I guess we'll see what happens. I wonder, like, I don't know. Like when Reagan left office and he was kind of suffering from some Alzheimer's or whatever, he kind of went quietly, right? Like he didn't talk a whole lot in public. He wasn't like trying to micromanage or like control things. I think Trump, if he survives, he's like it'll be like that's another discussion of like, well, what if he like survives? How is he going to be constantly tweeting like 40 times at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m.? Like, well,
About his
multiple.
successor.
Yeah, his successors, his success. Yeah,
That
and
would be
like,
interesting to see. Like if he gives up the whole running for a third term, just actually goes out. Um, maybe if he doesn't go to prison or doesn't get investigated, or like I don't know, a Republican wins or something, and just like totally turns the page, right? It would be interesting to see how much of a bitch he is, just to keep the attention on himself, right? Like how do you go from being like 12 years sucking up all the oxygen in America and in the media, being like such a whiny little bitch about everything and such a self-aggrandizer? Like, how do you give that up, right?
yeah, and yeah, he's not going to be like Richard Nixon quietly writing thoughtful policy books.
Yeah.
He's very different post presidency. Like
Yeah.
George W. Bush hasn't really done or said much of anything like kind of deliberately. Like Obama's not. He comes out and campaigns for Democrats here and there, but he doesn't like talk a whole lot. But yeah, Trump will be a little different.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for about an hour. Anything you want to, anything on your mind you want to bring up? You want to shout out or some issue that is bothering you?
Bothering me.
or
Yeah, I think
some
the
American.
corruption's bothering me on a daily basis.
Yeah,
It's
the
incredibly
insane
annoying.
corruption.
And like the worst thing I hate is like all these people who are getting it's like yeah, it's like there's two things. On the one hand, there's like, the dipshit who just happened to buy crypto at the right time and made a bunch of money and then suddenly they're fucking investors and they know everything and anyone
Yeah.
should listen to them. And like, it's the other kind of like the more professional, serious, but still equally bullshit people are like the people who go on CNBC and talk about like business and how Elon blah 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 and the value of like just all that stuff. So that pisses me off. And then just the straight corruption, which is just bad and shameful. Like this is just ruining our government, and people are just taking money and finding ways to profit off things. Like, yeah, it just makes me mad.
Yeah, I hear that.
I don't even have a
That,
coherent
that
thing to say. It just makes me that mad.
yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine on like Politico and The Hill and like some of these media organizations that just write all these stories as if everything is normal and everything Trump is doing is normal. And then there's Axios, which just that guy Barack Ravid or whatever that just keeps writing articles about how Trump's almost got a deal. And like somebody counted it up, and like as of like 3 days ago or something, like Trump said 39 times that a deal was just around the corner. And now apparently there might be one. This might be the 40th, right? We're going to wake up on Monday morning. Iran's going to be like, what the fuck? We're not doing any of that shit that he just, again, there's no planning, there's no policy. And that's another pet peeve of mine. It used to be like governments that are responsible, right? They would go to, when you actually go to the country, it's because, and you have like high profile people doing like photo ops, it's because like everything has been ironed out like
Yeah.
95%. And it's just like a couple T's to cross and I's to dot. But like JD Vance was going to go to Iran and then he ended up not doing it. Trump went to China and didn't have anything prepared. And then China kind of ate his lunch. So like it pains me that like there's so little planning and strategy from the Trump administration that even just basic things like that, they just go so unprepared. And then these other countries that have normal functioning governments and bureaucracies and foreign policy teams and things like that are just really getting everything from Trump, right? And then maybe they bribe Trump in the background or something like that. Who knows what payments are being made on his like cryptocurrency or whatever bullshit he's got going on, and all of the real estate fraud. But it pains me when you read Politico and it's just all the articles as if everything's business like normal. And it's just, we don't live in reality. It's like something broke and we're not in reality anymore.
Well,
The
we're not in reality. Yeah.
gamification of our entire media ecosystem has just like warped everything.
Yeah, and it's absurd. Like, I mean, even our foreign policies like that. It's just moving the goalpost, like a
Yeah.
foot, a yard, a mile, like 10 miles away. And it's just like, first we had to like, the annoying. Here's another thing that's going to annoy me for the next couple of months is the fact that like anytime anyone mentions fucking Iran after this war is over, every Republican's going to reflexively say Trump kept them from getting a nuke, and it's like that's not true. Like that's
Right.
not even in the realm of reality. Like, they did not have a nuke. They weren't going to have a nuke. Trump made it more likely that they might want a nuke. And then like,
Yeah.
like, well, we need to, the war had to happen to open the
Also, you don't
strait.
even need nukes anymore. This war, if anything, proved you just need like 10,000 drones, right? You don't need a nuclear weapon. You don't
Yeah.
need it could get shot down. Obviously, the ethical issues of being like a global pariah of using nuclear weapons. Like you really need 10,000 cheap drones. That's the new nuke, essentially, right?
Yeah. In some respects, that goes back to I guess it's like one positive thing of like the deterrent value of, hey, we've got 10,000 drones. Like, good luck taking them all out. But yeah, I don't know. So I think like that, yeah, that'll be annoying. Like going into an election, especially the presidential election, every Republican saying Trump kept Iran from getting a bomb. That's going to be annoying. They're like,
Oh yeah.
they're going to say like, he's strong on foreign policy, even though this is like literally a charade. Like, I mean, look at Venezuela too. Like, Trump's touting Venezuela as some magical win, and it's like, do we have any evidence that Venezuela is
Everything's
better than it
back to
was
normal
before?
there. It's still
Yeah.
the same regime. They're still abusing people. People aren't flooding back there, moving in mass, going back and having freedom.
Yeah, the other
Yeah.
thing too is like if they end up taking Cuba, which, I suspect they probably will, and I suspect they probably already would have if Iran hadn't been, such a cluster. But like, once they do that, and they're just going to force the government to open up to like American businessmen, so then like like rich elites around Trump and the Republican Party and stuff are just going to be able to go buy like fucking Cuban property and then land for probably pennies on the dollar of what it's
Right.
probably actually worth, and then develop and like, oh look, we're so fucking genius. We put a hotel on a beach, and now we charge these outrageous numbers. We're fucking and it's just like, yeah, I
Yeah.
basically got this for free from the Cuban government as they were like collapsing and their people were begging for like any food
Yeah, yeah. They
whatsoever.
had no fuel to keep the electricity
Yeah.
past like an hour a day or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm
So we
looking
can look
forward to
forward to that
Jared.
in 2028, like Ivanka
Yeah.
Trump talking about what the beautiful beaches of Havana are. Like no one
Yeah,
fucking knew.
right. Yeah. Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Give a sweetheart deal to Ivanka and Jared. Turn Guantanamo Bay into a sweet resort.
Yeah.
And then let's finish. What do you make of the story, like being reported about JD Vance leading meetings behind Trump's back in the Situation Room about the Epstein stuff, which like the New York Times, what was it, Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman reporting that. It's funny to me that like JD Vance, like right off the bat is like everything they were saying and everything they've talked about with the Epstein files is like this will be politically damaging, but they don't even pretend to give a shit about the victims or to do
Yeah.
anything for the victims or get justice or anything like that.
Isn't that
But
obvious that like they all know what's really going on there? Like let's
yeah,
be real. Like, if you told any other fucking person a story about like all these people being trafficked and victims and all this stuff, like, you people would have concern, especially like people in the Department of Justice. Like, what the fuck? Isn't that their goddamn job? Like getting justice on behalf
well,
of
Pam
victims?
Bondi's been saying that like she had that statement basically saying that she didn't really, she wasn't involved in figuring out what documents to disclose and release, and it was all Todd Blanche. So that's good to know that Trump's personal lawyer got involved, totally took everything revolving the Epstein files, and then now he's the Attorney General himself, or he's at least not appointed to be.
He's acting or whatever.
Yeah, we'll see. I would hope Republicans, like they killed Bill Pulte guy at DNI to replace Tulsi Gabbard. I really hope Republicans also, like especially these ones that are retiring, I hope they refuse to appoint Todd Blanche. He just seems like he has no fucking soul. He just looks evil. He just looks like a horrible, soulless person, right? Like everything he's doing with the Epstein files, like that guy has no soul, right?
I gotta see if he looks evil or whatever.
He's Trump's personal lawyer. That is
No,
now,
I mean, yeah, that doesn't bode well.
and the ease with which he's lying about all this stuff. While apparently we just learned he was in those meetings with JD Vance about like, oh yeah, some of these accusations about Trump are very credible.
Yeah, that's what I hope if Democrats take power, they'll actually fucking go nuclear on like just releasing information and getting it. Like, and that's like everything. Like, I really want them like fucking like dig down and pass a law that says like, the federal government needs to release all the shit on like the aliens or whatever. And like, Congress can appropriate fucking money. Why don't they appropriate money for 10,000 people to go fucking through every goddamn document with AI and find the fucking shit about aliens? And it's just like the whole argument, we need to protect our secret military technology against China. And it's like, wouldn't it, if they're doing this soft, like quasi quarantine, wouldn't a good deterrent to protect Taiwan be like, oh yeah, China, 80 years ago, we found some alien craft. We know how to use them. So fuck you. And it's like, wouldn't that be a good way to protect Taiwan? Maybe stop the war in Ukraine.
Well, it's like we've talked about that before, but like the thing about aliens, like if all these governments have had like evidence of aliens and they know, and if, some allegations that government people have like aliens in buildings and have talked to them, but like does any leader around the world act like they're in regular contact with like a high-tech alien race? Does anything Trump's doing? Well, yeah. Does anything Trump has done make you think he's concerned about aliens coming back or invading us, or just like that we're not alone? Does Xi Jinping, would like going after Taiwan really be that big of an issue if like every country has aliens in a warehouse somewhere, in prison or whatever? I don't know. Craft.
Yeah, I love the stories. They're so fucking stupid too. And like they're like, oh yeah, like in 1960, blah blah blah, the Italian government and military found a UFO that they dug up. An American special ops team went and collected it. America's got all these special, they're like, America's got a whole division of fucking people who go collect alien spaceships from around the world. And it's like, really, there's no fucking proof that's like percolated out. It's always like, Yeah, I don't know. I could talk about
It's
this
always
topic
like a
forever, but
crazy lunatic that got like fired for a cause from the CIA or something, and like in the 1980s, and that's the guy going on like
yeah.
Joe Rogan and talking about, I've seen the crafts. They've got these reverse gravity beams or whatever.
Well, the other thing that's so funny too is like all these documentaries coming out, like people like, oh, the government won't tell us, like, oh, we're so close, and like they even interviewed like members of Congress, including Marco Rubio, and like I've watched a couple of them, and it's so fucking funny because like every single documentary is like, I swear to God, I talked to blah blah blah, but he told me not to say his name, and he told me he's like he saw something, but he couldn't tell me what it was, and it's just like really, that's your whole fucking case? It's like some guy told you he saw something but couldn't tell you what it is. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's ludicrous.
You know, it's funny too. It's like, maybe a distinctly American part of our culture or something, but it's like if you look at a map of where every UFO claim comes from, it's like America is like lit up like a lightning flash and the rest of the world is just like here and there. But yeah, I think we have a
We're
little bit
number
of a
one, baby.
global, yeah. It's only Americans that get butt probed, get the abducted and anal probed.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
man.
yeah. Well, I mean, there are like cases from other countries that are pretty wild when you hear the story and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Interesting, not necessarily compelling given like, the lack of information. But yeah, it's just so funny. And then like there's so much shit the CIA allegedly has, right? And there's all these like randomly like half redacted, like released documents from the CIA that talk about like remote. I just love that, like the remote viewing stuff. And it's just like because the CIA had a document that got FOIA requested and like released. So it's like, yeah, so some crackpot CIA, first off, the CIA hires, fucking how many tens of thousands of people a year. And the idea that one
Yeah.
of them wrote some fucking dumb report on like remote viewing and then 80 years later, it gets like or 70 years later, it gets released in a FOIA request. And then all these
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God, they're doing psychic stuff. It was real. I knew it. And it's just like, I think of the military, like think of like the amount of just documents being created on a daily basis from like military people across like the fucking globe, messages that go out that people write and hand jam and fucking make little typos and put little jokes
Yeah.
sometimes. And it's like, imagine in 70 years, someone FOIA requests and it's like, see this fucking like, E3 in the army in 2014 wrote this document. It's fucking
Yeah.
proof that like
Yeah,
it's like
it's some
government
like crunchy woman that like loves crystals and astrology. That's like,
whatever it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just think that's funny. Like, having seen that world and it's like just the people who work in it, the mistakes, it's like everything else. Like I bet like the
yeah,
CIA makes tons of mistakes and it's like, that's not indicative of a giant cover up,
yeah.
but
Plus, everywhere has idiot employees, lunatic employees, people who seem normal but are delusional, people who are incompetent, and a lot of just laziness, right? I'm sure there's a lot of memos that go out on Friday, like 3 p.m., where maybe
yeah.
not the most care went into it, but yeah.
Well, yeah, the
Anyway,
last thing I'll say, this always I literally cry laughing sometimes when I hear people talking about UFOs and they're like, you hear the most like asinine story of like, oh yeah, and then they touch me. And it's like, I don't know why he'd lie about that. it's
yeah.
like, you don't know why the guy who's saying that an alien touched him would be lying. So funny.
Yeah, like living in a trailer doing meth. That's the guy, Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting, like if we drug tested everybody that had like a major UFO allegation that got like picked up by the news or something like that, or some guy writing a book or whatever. It'd be funny if you could drug test all of that, see any correlation with
Yeah.
drug
The
use and
percentage.
UFO allegations. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's a good place to stop. Thanks everybody for listening to Brain Milk. You got anything you want to plug real quick?
No, that's it.
No. All right.
The
Check out
aliens
the
is my
halfway
last topic.
aliens. Yeah. Check out the Halfway Post. I write a lot of comedy. Halfway Cafe on Substack. Halfway Post on all the socials if you like comedy and making fun of Donald Trump. But thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you next time on Brain Milk. See you, everybody. See you, Adrian. Have a good one.